So we're here for the Startup Hub, and today's topic is intellectual property, or IP. And I'm very pleased to be joined by Nick Boydell, who's Senior Associate at Bird & Bird. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you very much.
So Bird & Bird, obviously we know them quite well as a legal firm. In fact, you've been a great partner to Cisco in many of the things we do from an innovation perspective and with startups. But how much time do Bird & Bird spend on kind of intellectual property and IP?
We're a very large firm now, large international firm, and IP takes up, I would say, just about half of our practice, which is a very large number of lawyers. So it's a lot of what we do.
Why should a startup consider intellectual property as that important?
Well, IP is really key for startups and for any business, especially in the sort of tech age and the information age. Because often when you think about what is a startup, what's at the core of their business, it is IP, whether it's software, or it's an invention, or even a brand. And when investors look at a startup and they want to put money into it, one of the very first things they'll look at is, has the startup got its IP in order? Is it all within the company? And is this an idea which is protected by the startup, or are they going to start doing business and everyone else will simply take the idea? So that's something that startups definitely got to think about.
And you mentioned some of the forms there. I mean, what are the key forms of IP that you think a startup should consider?
So the primary ones to think about are probably patents, which protects inventions, copyright, which protects a variety of things, but most important for startups is probably software designs, as in 2D designs, and also literary works, and by that also includes things like instruction manuals and text on a website. You've also got to think about trademarks, which protects brands, and you've also got to think about confidential information, which is a kind of IP right, and it protects essentially trade secrets.
And in your view, you've mentioned some of them there, but actually, the first practical steps that a startup should take to start forming that protection, what in your view would that be?
So they need to think about what IP can they register. So that would be, so they need to think about, could they register a patent? And in that regard, they should speak to a patent attorney who's a specialist in filing patents, and they will tell them whether what they've got is potentially patentable or not. And that will perhaps define their next steps. Because if they do have a potentially patentable invention, then they should get the application in as soon as possible. Once they've got a filing date, then they can sort of move forward with their business. So the other point is that if they don't have a patentable invention, then they may be able to keep what they've got. If they've got an idea or an invention, but they can't, for whatever reason, patent it, or they don't have the budget, for example, one option may be to keep it confidential and just make sure that no one else can learn this invention or reverse engineer it from the product by a system of NDAs or sort of technical ways to stop people reverse engineering things. And then the other thing is trademarks. It's always good to register a trademark as soon as possible, just so you get on paper that you have the rights, from this date, to stop other people coming in later on and claiming those rights. The
last question I have for you really was around kind of exemplars and places that people can go to see examples of cases. I mean, we see the big cases quite a lot, and you can read them in the papers and all those sort of things. But is there a sort of database or a place where people can go just to see kind of examples of different startup scenarios that have happened? Is there a good reference point for them?
What you'll find is that law firms themselves put out little summaries on their websites of recent interesting cases. So if you go to the IP section of law firms, you'll find some interesting examples, including involving people in the tech industry, some startups. And in terms of guidance, one very good place to look is the UK IPO website. That's the UK Intellectual Property Office. And they have a lot of guidance on how to apply for IP, how to protect IP, where to go if you have an issue with enforcement, and topics around that area.
Okay, well, Nick, thanks very much for coming to talk to us. That's very useful. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.